Haru Nefer Ramech.
Okay, my
Okay, my odds. Dua for joining us in this meditative mood, this meditative space that we're in. Some of y'all got the jump on us already with the roll call, but before I acknowledge where y'all are chiming in from, we're going to start with our prayer and then we'll come back around to the roll call. So, y'all ready? Amatu and Panatir. Sawek tuament and Panatir. Autu Alma. Ketipa Haru. The translation is give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and do it tomorrow as you do it today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything and yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netzeru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, the light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akaru, true of thought, word, and deed to our highest reality, and in the moments of crises and the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is, and so shall it be. Everyone say, Amen Ma'at.
Amen Ma'at.
Ma'akaru.
Ma'akaru.
Dua Neter. All right. All right, so now we'll get into the roll call. Y'all was a little early before, but let's get into this roll call. So let's see where y'all are joining us from. Spartanburg, South Carolina, Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas. Okay, a couple more cities in Texas and we'll have a whole state covered. Another person chiming in from Houston. Dua Neter. Ellicott City, Maryland is in the building. Alkin Ma'at Kamares. That's what's up. Lincoln, Nebraska is in the building. East Orange, New Jersey, by way of Brooklyn. Dua Neter. Toronto, Canada is here. Newark, New Jersey is here. Let me see. St. Louis, Missouri is here. Alkin Ma'at Wesley. That's what's up. Hyattsville, Maryland is here. Philadelphia is here. Columbus, Ohio is here. That's what's up. Dua Neter. Yes, give thanks. All right, I know there's some folks on here who didn't tell us where they're from. Oh, here we go. We got Michelle in Boston. That's what's up. I'll just say we're glad you joined us anyway, even if you lurking in silence. It's okay. Dua for being here. Yes, we even have some of our initiates who are up the street and around the corner from where we are. Y'all know we at my house now. For now, this is the last communion we'll be doing in this location for a while. Akron, Ohio is in the building. Dua Neter, but in 2 weeks when we celebrate Hanek Ma'at, we will be returning to our in-person services, and hopefully we'll resume doing services in that format for a little while. Hopefully the things as far as the pandemic concerned starts to iron out, and we'll be back to sort of doing some things the way we been, getting back to the old school. Alkin Ma'at, a Boots a Shot. Alkin Ma'at, a Boots a Shot in Connecticut. We got East Orange in the building. At Bloomfield, New Jersey in the building. Dua Neter. Yes, glad to see all y'all chiming in and able to join us on this day for our regular communion. I want to just acknowledge also the song that was playing, because I saw a couple people say that was one of their favorites. That song is called The Recital. It's from the first album that was crafted and curated by Nasib Bedi. The first album called A New Ambiance. Available. A New Ambiance is actually available like on streaming platforms. So it's on iTunes, it's on Apple Music. Wait, maybe that is iTunes. It's on Amazon Music, it's on Spotify, it's everywhere. We also have physical copies and digital downloads on our website. And I readily do this shameless plug because I know how hard you've been working recently on crafting more music that I'm really excited to hear. I hope you all are really excited to hear. I want to just take a minute to acknowledge, your dedication to that, because I know that it's a contribution to like the overall culture for our people, for all of us, right? Like as we return to our ways of being African and embracing, Kemet, that we have the clothes that support our lifestyle, that we have the jewelry made by Baba Haru at the Studio Patah that supports the lifestyle, right? That we have the hairstylist to support the lifestyle, that we have the incense to support the lifestyle, and that we have the music to support the lifestyle, so that everything that we bring into our homes, that we bring in our cars, supports a lifestyle of us living in Ma'at. So I want to just publicly acknowledge that your devotion to the music over the last few years has been about what it is that you're contributing to the people, like what it is that it's a gift from him to all of us, that we all can like be better and stronger and more firm in how it is that we live in Ma'at. And so I just want to say that out loud, so you know that your contribution has not gone unnoticed, and that you know that we see how it's, like I said, a love letter from you to us, to all of us. It has been for the people. Dua Netter. So I hope you all do get his music if you don't already have it. We won't stop with the shameless plugs, but I just wanted to make that statement today again, because I know how hard he's been working. He has new music that's coming. It's beautiful, you guys. And again, it's just like everything that we're doing to try to reconstruct this culture and help all of us to be better Kemites. It's just going to go up from here. Dua Netter. Dua Netter. Oh, you know, I should have had some water out here. All right. Can you fill up the? Thank you. The Kerhev Hasedi Kemmer had my back over here. I gotta give him a shout out. We also have Sir Shep Armik Tower, our elder, and Wepet Marker in the building with us. Happy to have y'all here. All right, so we are in the energy of the spring equinox today, this weekend. I saw some of y'all already acknowledging that in the chat, and so I want to speak to that a little bit today. You know, we started talking about it 2 weeks ago. I gave you all the heads up then that we were transitioning out of the winter and into the spring. And as here we are at this transitory moment where we're really shedding that energy of hibernation, shedding that energy of like internal cultivation, shedding that, like we're shedding the planning stage. We're coming out of that planning stage. The spring equinox is such a beautiful moment because equinoxes really represent Ma'at. They represent balance. The moment in our year, or these moments in our year when the day and the night are experienced in equal, right? 12 and 12, right? So there's this beautiful opportunity for us to bring our lives back into alignment and to respect the divine balance that's necessary in order to make our lives beautiful and joyful, right? And that's so much of what this spring equinox represents for us. There's this amazing and powerful energy of fertility at the spring, this burst of new energy, this feeling of new beginnings, this feeling of springing forth, this vitality and this virility. It's one of the main reasons why we as conscious people tend to talk about the spring as being the real new year, right? Because the spring brings along, first of all, it's been warmer for the last couple of days. I went out the other day in my bubble coat and I was like, what am I doing? It's not winter anymore. Like, I was clear, like, oh, hold on, I didn't get the memo that it's not winter no more, right? So it's warmer. And so that's more inspiring and encouraging. The warmth makes you want to get out there. The weather changing makes you want to get out there. It starts to feel like it's time to make moves. It's time to be present. It's time to be active. That energy of the spring is connected to or related to the idea of life springing forth, and this idea of being ready to cultivate and to make manifest, to fertilize, to impregnate, for lack of a better word. I'm looking for a different word, but I'm gonna use that word, impregnate, right? It's the energy of impregnate and implantation, right? I love that because a few days ago I had a dream, and in my dream there was one of our temple initiates actually, and it didn't look like her, like it didn't look like what I remember her to look like, but I knew it was her, like in her energy, I knew it was her. and she was just glowing. She was like, the skin was moisturized. She was nice and tan. The hair was on point. She was like laid back, and she was like, she was just filled with this joy, and she was hugely, heavily pregnant, right? So filled with this possibility, filled with this abundance, like ready to pop at any moment, ready to give birth to something fantastic that has been like brewing inside of her, that has been cultivating inside of her, right? That has been being nurtured inside of her. And I was like, this is incredible, right? Like, this is spring equinox energy personified in this dream, right? And so first thing I did when I woke up in the morning was I texted her, because I was like, I gotta tell her about this. But I also want to tell y'all about it in terms of like just reminding you that that's what this energy represents, is like there's all this possibility that we have access to, this potential that we have access to. Men find their example of this in the Netter Min. Okay, I'm going to show you all a picture of Min just in case y'all don't know who he is. All right. And so the first thing I want to say about Min, if you've never been introduced to Min before, is that Min is not only about sex. Okay. Now let's be very clear. Min is about sex, but Min is not only about sex. Okay. Min is the archetype for men that is about how men demonstrate their potency and their vitality and their virility. And that potency and that power does not always have to be used in sex, right? Now, sometimes because of our westernization, we get unhealthy, and men think that the only way for them to use their energy, you got an abundance of energy within you, they think the only way to use that energy is to exert it in sex. We could talk more about that later. But that doesn't mean that that's the only way that energy can be used. The example of men demonstrates to us that men, healthy, ma'atic, righteous men, have the capacity to direct and transmute their sexual energy, their sexual vitality, their sexual virility into spiritual pursuits and gains, right? So that a man has to be powerful enough to cause his energy to make things happen in the world. All right. There's this saying that is in the community about how men are not supposed to spill seed. And we could take that very literally, but metaphorically, what it refers to is not wasting your energy. It refers to not directing your energy into mindless pursuits. It refers to not wasting your time when you're supposed to be building your business, when you're supposed to be stepping into your manhood, when you're supposed to be commanding the things around you, when you're supposed to be directing your future, when you're supposed to be properly utilizing your life force in order to maintain or create ma'at on the planet. But if you're not doing that and you're wasting your life force, because you're wasting it chasing women, you're wasting it chasing money, you're wasting it watching Netflix, you're wasting it playing card games, or you're wasting it at the basketball game. That's really what it means when it says don't spill your seed. It's not just about wasteful sexual practices. It's about wasteful uses of your divine spiritual life force. And your life force is symbolized through the seed, right? Or symbolized through that masculine virility. Mm-hmm. All right. So just like we're going to talk about the sisters archetype in a second, but just like with the sisters archetype, there is the idea of like planting and nurturing and energizing our work. Men also have to cultivate the energy within them. They also have to nurture their divine energy that's within them. And then they have to properly direct it, right? And so again, now here we are at the spring equinox, and you guys have done your work over the winter. You've hibernated, you've created your plans, and now you have to work on making sure that your sacred spiritual energy is being directed into your businesses, into your plans, into your intentions. You have to nurture those things. You have to care for those things. Just like you have to care for any relationship, just like you have to care for anything that matters to you in the world. I think it's so important to say that because oftentimes the divine masculine doesn't see itself as a nurturing element. And I think that that's a mistake because anything that matters to you requires nurturing and care in order for it to be properly taken care of, in order for it to not be neglected, in order for you to not lose it, right? If you don't properly nurture it, you're gonna lose it, or it's gonna not be in the right condition for it to give you what you need out of it, right? So the divine masculine has to be a nurturer also, right? The sacred man has to be a nurturer as well. And the way he nurtures might be different from the way that a woman nurtures, but there still has to be a nurturing element to how he cultivates his energy, how he directs his energy, and how he makes his plans come forth in the physical plane. Okay? And I'll even just speak about physical intimacy very briefly and say that there is absolutely an art to expressing and to experiencing deep spiritual connection through physical intimacy, right? So what I mean when I say that is that there's nothing wrong with physical intimacy. There's nothing wrong with sex, right? We do not demonize, we do not shame over here. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a difference between having fun and and cultivating and nurturing a deep spiritual connection. First and foremost, if you're having fun, do you even have a deep spiritual connection? So if you don't even have a connection, what are you even nurturing? What are you creating? What are you giving your life force to in an interaction that is meant to have fun, right? So again, the mindfulness and the intention behind how we approach physical intimacy, what we bring to physical intimacy, how do we engage in it as we see it as like a prayer, as we see it as sacred union, as we see it as a form of tantra, all right? Women find their example of this energy and this archetype in Het Haru, okay? And to be honest with you, I'll be like, Het Haru is the woman that I described in my dream, right? Like that is such Het Haru energy. And let me first start, or let me not go any further on Het Haru without saying that while I am talking about the Neteru right now, based on my experiences, based on me studying them, based on me understanding them, I absolutely and constantly believe that it's important for each one of us to develop our own relationships with the Neteru, right? Like we have to get to know them ourselves and allow them to reveal certain things that are just for us, right? Or that allow us to understand their attributes in a way that makes sense and have meaning for us, right? You can't only rely on what people tell you. You have to also develop, and it's just like if you meet someone and someone tells you like, oh yeah, that person is X, Y, and Z, like that's that person's perspective or impression of who you just met. You still have to not judge hastily, right? And get to know this person on your own and determine if those qualities are true. Maybe your experience is different. Maybe your personalities are more compatible. Maybe the way that person operates in your life is different than how they operate in that other person's life. So it's the same with the Neteru. These are relationships that have to be cultivated. You have to get to know them. And so everything that I say or everything you read in a book, what you hear the Sit say, etc., it's all starting places for you to create your own relationship with the Neteru. I say that because it took me a while to understand that on my own. And so my earliest days in this legacy, I relied heavily on what people told me about Het Haru. And that made it very difficult for me to connect with Het Haru because I didn't identify with some of the things. Like people did a lot of talking about like, oh, you have to wear makeup, and I'm like, I don't want to wear makeup. They're like, well, if you want to connect with Het Haru, you gotta wear makeup. I'm like, right? They're like, well, you gotta wear a lot of jewelry. Like, I'm not really big on the jewelry thing. And they're like, but how else are you gonna connect with Het Haru if you don't wear makeup and you don't keep your hair done and you don't wear jewelry and you don't wear the flyest clothes? Like, what you mean? You wore that dress last week, you gonna wear it again? And I'm like, yeah. And so there was a lot of like, I actually had came to the conclusion that like, oh, I guess Het Haru is not for me, right? I had come to that conclusion based off of that. And I want to acknowledge that I'm not saying that any of what those people said was wrong. It's not wrong. It's just different than my experience with her as I've gotten to know her myself directly. Those people's experiences are just as correct and just as valid, but I've had my own experiences with her and formed my own relationship with her, and now I feel closer to her than ever before because I took the time out to do that work on my own. So one of the things that my relationship with Het Haru was able to grant me was the understanding that the Het Haru woman is not necessarily the prettiest woman in the room. She's the most attractive woman in the room. And attraction and attractiveness is not just about beauty. It's about energy. It's about vibration. It's about the way that people feel drawn to you, the way that you charm the room, the way that you carry yourself with swag and with light. And it makes other people want to be around your light. It makes other people want, how is she so happy? How is she so comfortable? How is she so at peace and so carefree? I want to feel carefree like that. I want to be at peace like that. I'm going to be around her so that I can feel that and I can radiate that for myself. So for me, Het Haru never came up about wearing a lot of makeup. It really came up about glowing from the inside out. It's still, I mean, even it looked like I'm wearing a lot of makeup, but I'm still not wearing a lot of makeup compared to how some other African sisters, they be adorned with the bracelets and everything. I'm sorry, jewelry I meant. But for me, it wasn't about necessarily being adorned with the jewelry. It was about sparkling, right? Like having sparkles in your personality, sparkles in your eyes, sparkles in your smile, right? And again, that people see that sparkling and that's something that they are attracted to. Het Haru energy is seductive, but not manipulative, right? It is sensual, but not raunchy. It is joyful, but not goofy. And she is captivating, but not narcissistic, right? Y'all know what I mean when I say that, right? Joyful, but not goofy. Yeah. So seductive, but not manipulative, right? Like drawing people in, encouraging people to help, encouraging people to support, but not in a way that's causing people to do things outside of their own will, right? Sensual, meaning in full command of her sexual power and prowess, aware of the fact that she's desirable, aware of the fact that people desire her, right? And not afraid or ashamed of that. But not necessarily raunchy either, right? Joyful, but not goofy. So lighthearted, able to laugh, able to tell a joke, able to take a joke, right? And captivating, but not narcissistic, meaning that people's attention naturally is drawn to her. That doesn't necessarily mean she needs to be the center of attention. It just means that people's attention is naturally drawn to her. And the honest truth is I could say the same things. Those same qualities are true about men energy as well. Seductive, sensual, joyful, captivating. Men probably like different words than those, but the truth is that the masculine energy is like that as well. Definitely with the captivating thing, I have been reading a lot of fantasy novels, right? And one of the thing, I mentioned this to y'all before about my recent fascination with fantasy novels, but one of the common things in the fantasy novels is this idea of like an alpha, right? And when the alpha walks into the room, everybody stops and looks and everybody pays attention and nobody can turn their eyes away. And it's not necessarily that the alpha is the most beautiful person in the room. He just carries himself with confidence, with power, with strength. He's self-assured. He's captivating. He's full of energy. He's able to make things happen. He's able to give the orders and direct the people. He's the one who everyone trusts to keep them safe. He's the one who everyone trusts to make sure that they're successful. So he's the one who's in charge, because he's the one who through his energy, through proper cultivation and direction of his energy, he has convinced his community and his people to put their faith in him and to allow him to be their leader. So that archetype for men, actually, I didn't write it down. I'm going to use these words. For the masculine energy is dominant energy. It's not domineering energy. Okay, so it's not the tyrant. It's not telling you what to do. It's not bossing you around, but it is dominant energy. It is leadership energy. It is the energy of the one who knows how to be in charge. It is protective energy, but it's not possessive energy. Okay, so not like, this is mine and I don't share and no one else can ever, this is important to me, and therefore I do everything I must do to protect what is of value to me, what I value, what is mine, what is important to me, right? So those would be the words that I would use for the masculine. So again, when the women are standing in their righteous het heru energy and men are standing in their righteous min energy, they are flames. They are many suns, and every single one of us are going to be drawn to their light, drawn to that flame, like moths, like African people are drawn to the sun. When we see that sun in other people, we are attracted naturally to that sun. I remember being a young woman and becoming aware of my inner sun, my inner flame for the first time. And the first time, or the first few times where you realize that people see you as attractive, right? And you see the potential that you have to draw into yourself, right? The first times that you realize that you are a person that other people desire, and you feel that power, right? To be able to have others desire you, and what can I do with this, right? Like, that's power. That's important, right? I don't know what that experience is like for young men. I can only speak from my own experience as a young woman. I remember what that felt like the first time you become aware that, like, hold up, people looking at me. I'm shining. I'm attractive. I'm desirable. Okay, this is something, I can do something with this. And now as an adult and looking back and reflecting on that time, having to acknowledge the reaction of the people around me and how that impacted my growth and development. The societal reaction to that light is shame. Society's reaction to a young person coming fully into their light, into their power, into their attractiveness, into their radiance, into their desirability, into their dominance, into their sensuality, even into their sexuality, has been to instill shame. And as Black men and Black women, there are many places where we get that shame. The most pervasive of them being the Black church. The Black church, I could talk for hours about the Black church. About the Black church, and about how damaging the Black church has been as an institution of racism and white supremacy to instill shame upon black people, because the black church is first and foremost an institution of white supremacy, right? It does the work of this society to keep us in line. All right. And shame is one of the ways that it has done that work for us. It has shamed, is particularly, I feel, particularly black women away from embracing that light, away from embracing that radiance. And rather than giving us tools on how to properly cultivate and direct that light, instead, it tells us, just don't glow. Just don't shine. Just don't let anybody see you. Don't attract anyone to you. Don't radiate. Don't be desirable.
In Islam, they got them covered up with the face.
Oh my God. Yes, exactly.
Same with the Jewish tradition, they got to keep everything covered.
Keeping everything covered, exactly. So that's how you know. That's how you know it's not just the black church. It's actually Westernization. It's American culture. It's patriarchy. It's capitalism. It's all these different. It's white supremacy. It's all these different aspects that are meant to take us away from our power and instill things upon us that are going to control us and subdue us, so that we never actually activate or can utilize the divine powers that are within us. So they don't give you the tools to understand how to use it properly, right? And don't even let you understand what it is. Just shame it out of you. Just tell you that you're doing something wrong. Because let's be clear what shame is. Shame is a feeling of humiliation or distress that is meant to come upon you when you've done something wrong. So now think about it as a young person in this world. Repeat that. Shame is a feeling of humiliation or distress that is meant to come upon you when you've done something wrong. So now, as a young person in the world who is coming into their adulthood for the first time and becoming aware of your light, your radiance, your shine, and people make you feel ashamed of that, what does that tell you? That tells your mind and your psyche that shining is wrong. It tells your psyche that being attractive is wrong. It tells your psyche that being radiant is wrong, that being dominant is wrong, that being captivating is wrong, that being seductive is wrong. So now, how exactly can we come together as black men and black women in sacred, sanctified, holy unions when we don't have full access to all of our power? Because our powers have been subdued by shame. The examples of the Netru in our tradition show us what's possible when the divine man and the divine woman come together in a sacred spiritual union. When Asar and Aset come together, they bring forth Haru. Haru is literally the divine will made manifest on the earth. They are able to make what they want happen through Haru. They are able to be victorious through Haru. They are able to defeat their enemies because of Haru. They are able to reestablish Ma'at because of the fruit that came from the union of the sacred man and the sacred woman. When Ptah and Sekhmet come together, they make Neferatum. Ptah is the idea, the possibility, the potential, and Sekhmet is the passion and the motivation and the fire, and Neferatum is the beautiful completion that comes from that is the fruit of their union. When Amen and Mu come together, they bring forth Kansu. Yet another example of the sacred trinity in our tradition, of the coming together of the divine masculine represented by Amen, represented by the unseen one, and then the divine feminine represented by Mut, represented by the physical, right? And that which is seen, the unseen and the seen coming together to create Kansu, the capacity to travel through both existences and to realize and understand that which is both seen and unseen, right? That's what Kansu. So again, the beautiful fruit of their union. These are the examples that our ancestors give us about when the masculine and the feminine come together, when they are fully in Ma'at, when they are fully operating in their divine powers, then they are able to give birth to something magnificent, something great that comes through them. So how have our collective and individual journeys suffered? Because we don't have access to our full powers and our full potential and our full divinity because we have been held back by shame. Our ability, we've talked a lot, about creating your own reality and about our abilities to be abundant people and about how the universe is infinite. And I know we often hear people who say like they just struggle with that. We talk about like start with the basics and meditate regularly, go to the altar regularly, feed your ancestors regularly. And people just sometimes just struggle with that. They just struggle. They do it over and over and they feel like it's just not working. They don't get why it's working. But let's go back to your formative years and let's ask ourselves what part of your formative years may be causing the challenges that you're experiencing now, right? If you were taught that being attractive is unhealthy or that it's wrong and that you should not be attractive or you should hide your attractiveness or you should cover your attractiveness, and now when I tell you be an attractive being and attract what you want to yourself, is there something in your internal unconscious self that's telling you like, hold on, I can't be attractive? The church taught me not to be attractive. My mama taught me not to be attractive. The whole world, patriarchy, misogyny in the whole world told me not to be attractive. So now you telling me to be attractive and I don't think I can be attractive because I'm still handcuffed and shackled by shame. What about ideas of abundance? What about ideas of prosperity? What about ideas of success? If you're being told to shine brighter and to show everybody what you can do and to cause people to want to help you and to magnetize yourself so that people are drawn to you and to step forth into your light and into your power, and you don't know how to find your light or your power, or you don't believe in your light or your power, or you think negatively about your light and your power because you think that shining your light caused you to be wrong or you did something wrong, then how can you even put these teachings to the test? Because every time you go to your altar, every time you meditate, every time you petition your ancestors, there's a little voice in the back of your head that's saying, this cannot work, this should not work, because I cannot turn on my light to full power. I cannot allow myself to shine. I cannot allow myself to radiate. I cannot allow myself to be magnetized. I cannot allow myself to be attractive, because if I do, I will be doing something wrong because they told me before that I should be ashamed of it. So every time we go into our spiritual work, if we haven't dealt with that shame that was instilled upon us in our formative years, then every time we go into our spiritual work, there is a barrier there that's literally keeping us from accessing the rest of our potential and from accessing all of the abundance and prosperity that the Neteru and the ancestors have available to us. There's literally a blocked locked door that you cannot get past. And the key to that locked door is unleashing and letting go of your shame. And I also want to just acknowledge that the importance and the necessity of us, I'm speaking to us as adults coming into this culture, right? And therefore making the presumption in my conversation that many of us were raised in the church. Many of us were raised in Islam. We were not raised in African culture, right? But we have children that are being raised in African culture. So we cannot and should not be instilling shame upon them in their formative years, right? This is a lesson about not just about how we have to release the shackles of shame from our own minds, but we also have to release the shackles of shame from, we cannot continue that legacy. It cannot be a cycle that goes on, and now, and our parents instill shame on us, so we instill it on our children, and they instill it. No. It was what did they say on Facebook? It was a generational curse until it got to me, right? It ran in my family until it ran into me. That's what it is. Okay, so now it's our responsibility to ensure that as our children come into puberty and prepare for their rites of passage and prepare to become adults, that we don't make them ashamed of their light and we don't make them ashamed of their power. Instead, our responsibility is to help them understand how to use it and direct it properly. And I know that's going to lead to some uncomfortable conversations, because even though men and het haru are not only about sex, yes, sex is a part of that, which means some of us parents will have to have conversations with our children about proper sexual health and how that relates to proper spiritual health, and how the two are interconnected, and how they should be coming together in sacred relationships and sacred unions with others, right? How they should be conducting themselves and how they should expect others to conduct themselves. That might be some uncomfortable conversations, but you have it with them, or they're gonna learn from the streets.
That's right.
Okay? Somebody gonna talk to them about it.
All right.
So I think we'd rather it be us who can give them the proper information, who can direct them in the proper ways, who can monitor and help them manage and develop their growth until they're ready to handle it themselves. I want to just close out today. There's so much more we could say on the topic of shame, and we probably will come back around on this topic in the future. But I want to close out today and just say that, you know, all of this for me is a reminder that, again, we all come into African culture, Africa-Medi culture, with our minds preconditioned. Okay? All of us are conditioned in capitalism thinking, in patriarchal thinking, in classist thinking, in racist thinking, in colorist thinking. We have this conditioning in our minds. Not saying that's our fault. I'm just saying that's the truth of the world that we live in, the world that we have been brought to, and the world around us, right? And as a result, when we come into African culture, we have to make certain that we do not apply capitalistic, white supremacist, patriarchal, classist, colonizer ideas onto African tradition. Those things don't belong in the African worldview. They have no place in the African worldview. They're not a part of the African worldview. Shame over your body is not a part of the African worldview. Shame over your divine power is not a part of the African worldview. Shame over your sexuality is not a part of the African worldview. Shame over being a sensual being is not a part of the African worldview. Shame over your attractiveness is not a part of the African worldview. Shame over your light is not a part of the African worldview. These things don't have no place in Kemedi thinking, in Kemedi philosophy, in Kemedi culture. And so the work requires that we unlearn these things. The work requires that we identify where these things show up in our thinking, whether we mean them to or not. Most of the time, we don't even mean for these things to show up. We just been so conditioned that they come up all the time. And we have to catch ourselves and check ourselves. And we have a responsibility to make other people aware when these things are coming up to them also. Rather than trying to modify the African worldview in order to fit an Americanized or westernized way of living. No. The whole point is we're trying to leave behind. We're trying to leave that capitalism and westernization behind. We ain't supposed to be bringing parts of it with us. Leave it behind. Let it go. Do the work to unlearn that thinking. Baba Haru likes to say that as African people, we don't believe in patriarchy and we don't believe in matriarchy. We believe in ma'atiarchy, which is about balance and harmony. It is about the divine sacred masculine and the divine sacred feminine working together in concert in order to accomplish great things. It is about both the masculine and the feminine being fully aware of their power and their potential, being fully aware of their gifts, being fully in understanding of what it is that they do differently, right? And what it is that they bring to the table, what it is that they have to offer. I don't need to embody the energy of the divine man because I need to embody my sacred energy and bring that into concert and communion with the divine sacred man. And I do my part and the divine sacred man does its part, right? Or his part. Each part has to do its part. That's how we come and live in sacred harmony. That's how we live in sacred balance with one another. That's how we form a ma'atiarchy, right? Not a patriarchy, not a matriarchy, a rule of ma'at in our homes and in our families and in our communities and ultimately in the world around us. So I'll just leave us at that on that note for now. And dua again for joining us for this communion. If you all appreciated this message, I feel so weird saying this now. If you all appreciated this message, we appreciate the donations and the energy that you send to us in reciprocity, and as part of restoring balance or bringing balance to our relationship, the relationship you all have with the Temple of Anu. You may do so by sending donations to Cash App, which is $ Temple of Anu, or by PayPal, templeofanu@gmail.com. Again, we will be back here in 2 weeks for our regularly scheduled communion, and we'll also be at Refound headquarters in person, live and in person for that communion. Actually, let me take that back. We're not going to be on Facebook. I'm sorry, y'all. We're not going to be on Facebook and YouTube Live next communion because we will be celebrating Henek Ma'at. And so we do not live stream our sacred rituals. However, anyone who is interested in participating in Henek Ma'at is welcome to join us at Refound headquarters 2 weeks from today. So we will actually not see you all for a month, which I believe is Sunday, April 17th is the next time we will see y'all. And we'll be on Facebook and YouTube Live at that time. So dua, everyone. Shemi Matap.
Shemi Matap.